Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the University of the District of Columbia. I am your host, Allyn Johnson. I'm still a little under the weather, as you can hear, but it's not contagious. I'm just getting over a little cold, so as you can see, I have all these papers, and this is my tissue. Starbucks.
Product, please.
This afternoon, I'm so happy to have with me my sister, Christie Dashiell, and we're going to talk to Christie and get to know her a little better, and see what happens this afternoon. I like to start with playing instead of talking. So, what do you like to do, Christie? Oh, okay. Okay, we're going to do an arrangement I did for Christie of Burt Bacharach composition, made famous by the great Luther Vandross. Anyone who had a heart.
Can I borrow some tissue?
You want to cry?
A little bit.
You can borrow some. When I heard the harmony on this song, I mean, I've heard it for years, but I never thought to even cover it. But when I heard the harmony on this song, I had to arrange it. So, anyone who had a heart, Burt Bacharach.
Look at me and know that I love you. Anyone who ever dreamed could look at me and know I dream of you. Knowing I love you so. Anyone who had a heart could take me in his arms and love me too. You couldn't really have a heart and hurt me like you hurt me. Be so untrue. Ooh, what am I to do? Every time you go away, I always say, this time is goodbye, dear. Loving you the way I do, take you back, 'cause without you I die, dear. Knowing I love you so. Oh, anyone who had a heart would take me in his arms and love me. knowing I love you so. Anyone who had a heart would take me in his arms and love me too. You couldn't really have a heart and hurt me like you hurt me and be so untrue. Oh, anyone who had a heart, anyone who had a heart would take me in his arms and he would love me and hold me and kiss me. Why wouldn't you? Oh, anyone who had a heart, anyone who had a heart would take me in his arms and he would love me and hold me and kiss me. Why wouldn't you? Take me in his arms and he would love me and hold me and touch me. Why won't you?
For reading my mail.
Christie, it's a pleasure to have you on I gotta say on my show. Well, you never know.
Put that thing out and speak it into existence.
On my show, right? When did you know you could sing?
Oh, that's a really good question. Well, first, thanks for having me, Allyn. It's always a pleasure. I think I remembered knowing that I could like hold a tune around maybe 9. But I started taking singing and music really seriously around like 12, 13. Yeah.
What was like a typical day in your household? Because you're surrounded by, her whole family is just musically just gifted. Almost everybody, even the dog.
Well, that's true. So a little background. My dad, Christie Dashiell, is a great bass player who grew up in DC and lives in North Carolina now. And my mom also grew up in DC. She went to McKinley Tech High School, which was the arts high school. And so that's where they met. And she was studying classical voice and my dad bass. And so I guess when they had children, we really didn't, I don't think we consciously chose music. It kind of just was so much a part of our parents' lives and our upbringing that we, kind of chose us. So growing up was a little wild. Like, we were kind of weird kids in that we loved to practice. Like, most kids don't love, like, mommy, I want to go practice instead of like going to play soccer or something. So typically we'd wake up, go to school, come home, practice. We had a practice schedule because we used to fight over the practice room.
Hold it.
Oh, right.
Did you all hear that? Fight over the practice room.
Yeah, we used to get upset. So my sister, she's an actress, but she plays piano and sings. My oldest brother, Carol, or CB, plays drums. I'm the third. I sing and play piano. And then my little brother plays bass. Well, actually, he plays everything, but bass is his main instrument. So my little brother and I had a group. It was called Two Figures. And our name was, we used to do little gigs around town.
Are you serious?
Yeah, so our name was Two Figures because we would make like $50 on the gig. We made two figures. You know? So that was our name. Yeah, weird. But anyway, we had a little group, and we were so serious. We were like, yo, Cam and CD, those are our older siblings. Guys, we gotta practice. We got a gig next week. Like, we have to practice. And my sister would be, I'm trying to practice my Mozart. No. And then CD, my brother, would be like, yo, well, I'm really in here trying to practice my paradiddles. Like, I'm trying to get nice on the drums. So my parents made a practice schedule. So after we came home from school, we each get an hour in the studio. Christian and I were smart because we got 2 hours since we would practice together. So, you know.
Wow.
That was, and then we would sometimes go play gigs around town.
So tell the story about, you told me the story about your pops. You all gotta hear this. This is hilarious.
Which one?
The one in the car.
Oh, okay. So, if any of you all know my dad, he's so intense, but he's great. He's like Allyn. He's like, you know, I consider Allyn my mentor, and part of the reason is because he's so like serious about the music. He practices all the time. He's always pushing the envelope, and so my dad is that way. So once he knew that my siblings and I had the music bug, he was like, all right, y'all gotta be serious about this. It's practice time. Y'all gotta hone your craft. So one day, this intensity would generally show up around like when we did school concerts or when we were in the practice room. But this one time in particular, I was in the backseat of the car. I was singing NSYNC. At the time, I really loved NSYNC, that boy band. And I think the song was like, it's tearing up my heart when I'm with you. When we have a fight, I feel it too. Anyway, I was singing in the backseat, and I was like, like I'm feeling and my dad let me get through the whole song. And he said, that was the most terrible out-of-tune singing I've ever heard in my life. So, my heart was crushed. But I will say, it totally made me go home and like, I'm gonna show him. So now he's very much, he makes sure that he knows, that we know he's proud of us and he loves our music now.
Yeah, Papa Dashiell used to work here as a bass professor. This was before I was here, but yeah, I mean, I heard stories of how intense he can be, you know. But just knowing him, it's just hard to see that, you know, because he's such a nice guy, you know. He's a, you know, beautiful person and excellent excellent musician, you know. And I've had the pleasure of going to ECU and working with the band, and he's tough on them, man.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness, her father is something else.
He was like what's the coach, Bobby Knight? He's like the Bobby Knight of jazz. Like, he would throw stands at the students. Oh, I can't say that now. Nowadays you can't mess around, but he would throw music stands at students. He'd make them do push-ups. If they missed one note, you know, he was really, really... He came out of that school, though, like Charles Fun, Calvin Jones, even like that. I think that's the generation where, you know, it's no games. If you want to do this, you have to be serious about it.
Yeah, for sure. Let's see. What are some of your influences? I guess. Who are some of your influences, or what things influence you in your music?
So I have a couple. I'll take some different routes here. So vocally, I have a lot of influences, but I think part of the tradition of this music and Black American music is, you know, we listen to all kinds of styles. Everything really influences the music. So I grew up like that, listening to everything. So as it pertains to jazz music, I'd say Sarah Vaughan is probably my most favorite. But that's really hard because then I love, like Shirley Horn, she's DC, I gotta love her, and Carmen McRae. So I would say those three today are like some of my biggest influences. Gospel, I remember learning how to like riff and run from Mary Mary. Like that was my go-to when I was kind of growing up. And then I went through a Donny Hathaway phase. He's another DC Howard person. So I went through a Donny Hathaway phase, which led me to his daughter Layla Hathaway, and then I went through a Stevie Wonder phase. But Stevie Wonder has been more so a writing person that I like really am influenced by. And then also earlier on when I was starting to write, I was really influenced by Jerry Allen. So yeah, it's kind of a
So when you talk about Sarah Vaughan, so let's talk about Sarah Vaughan and Carmen McRae. I'll just pick those two.
Okay.
When you hear those two artists, what do you hear? Like similarities, differences?
Okay, yeah.
I'm curious to know about that.
So for Sarah Vaughan, I think a couple of things that I was drawn to in her singing was her range. Like she's known to have this really, really big, like 5-octave range. And I'm one of those people that has a large range, probably not as large as hers, but I like listen to her to learn how, as a jazz singer, she navigated through that range. And so like her use of texture when it comes to range is one of the things I really love. Like whenever she sings low, she's like really full kind of chest voice maybe, so she's like, and then up here in the stratosphere, she's like, the heavy vibrato. So those were some of the things that drew me to her, but like as far as jazz singing 101, to me she's one of the greatest kind of combinations of what I call storytelling and improvising. So whereas like Ella, I love and listen to her for like improvising, scatting, syllables, like swing fill, the big band, like a vocalist with a big band. I always go to Ella, but for Sarah, I'm listening to her storytelling because she's such a great lyrical singer, and then she's a great improviser also. So that's my Sarah spiel. For Carmen McRae, I think for me is the storytelling and kind of the fearlessness. Like when she sings, especially as she got older, she just had a very fearless approach where, yeah, she would miss notes, she would miss rhythms, but it was just like so appropriate for the music that it felt so good. So I listen to her a lot now for like style. I've come to love Carmen a little later on than what Sarah I loved kind of from the beginning.
What about, do you have any male singers that you like that you in particular or no?
Yeah, so I would say, everybody knows that album, John Coltrane and Johnny Hartman. So I really was into that album for a long time, and yet again, I'll go back to storytelling. Like Johnny Hartman was a great storyteller, and then I think I liked listening to him, kind of similar to like the Nancy Wilson Cannonball album, where you're listening to how like you can have an instrument and a voice, and how they can weave in and out of each other, and how each are kind of like on that album, Johnny Hartman and John Coltrane. I feel like I heard them both imitating each other. So that's kind of what I've taken from him, and also like tone. His tone is just like out of this world. Yeah, and Joe Williams for like big band stuff. Listen to how to cut like through a big band. Yeah.
I want to take a station break here, and I think I want to try something.
Okay.
Usually, I like to try to write something for my guests, but in this instance, I thought we'd try to do we call it spontaneous.
I love it.
Because I believe Christie's ear is so good, so. And this would be a test to see if I can even follow her. So We're gonna just play,
Okay,
right, and see where it goes.
cool.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
was fun.
Yeah.
Did you all enjoy that as much as I did? It's great to work with somebody that has a great ear, and I don't have to worry about babysitting musically, and and she doesn't have to babysit me. Let's see. You are quite a composer
Oh, thank you.
and lyricist.
Thank you.
Yeah. What for you? What comes first when you compose? Is it melody, harmony, words?
Yeah. I guess it really depends. It changes a lot. Right now, currently, I've been kind of writing everything together. So for instance, I wrote a newer song called Grief, which we just added to our book. Allyn's in my band, so I refer to it as our thing. But everything kind of came together. In the past, when I really started getting into writing with two figures, my group, my brother. We really loved writing together, and so because he's a bass player, I think harmony kind of drove my writing back then, my writing style. So everything was kind of like me sitting at the piano, figuring out what sounds I liked harmonically, and then the lyrics would come. So the lyrics kind of were a story to what the harmony was. And then when I was in college and grad school, it was lyrics first because I was learning. I think the emphasis when I was growing up was on improvising and building my ear, trying to find a sound. And college was about me learning to be a vocalist. So the lyrics kind of came first. So for a time I was writing poetry, and then I would put the rhythm and the harmony to the poetry.
Is there something that I guess an artist can do to develop the lyric side? I know for me, I write lyrics, but
You're a great lyricist, Allyn.
Yeah, when they come, it comes.
Yeah, I hear you.
But some lyricists can just
right on the spot.
right on. Yeah, I really have to feel it's not for me, music. I can write a tune in a few minutes
I hear you.
because of knowledge of music.
Right.
But
Knowledge of lyrics is
but see, lyricism is a little different.
Yeah.
Do you think there's something that you can develop?
I think so.
Okay.
I think that so reading really is helpful. Really just getting into whatever literature you like. I like fiction. I really tried nonfiction, but that wasn't really for me. So reading stories is really helpful for me. And then also just getting in the habit of I would write nonsense lyrics a lot. Just learning how to find a rhythm and poetry, finding your rhythm of the poetry, finding where you want to rhyme, finding where you want to breathe. So writing nonsense syllables helped me a lot kind of to develop a meter. And then also when I want to write lyrics, I sit down with a thesaurus. I sit down with a dictionary. It gets kind of intense because I know that based off of what limited vocabulary I have, where I can go. So I guess it's the same thing as songwriting. Is if your harmonic vocabulary is limited, if your rhythmic vocabulary is limited, there's only so much that you can really write, musically. The same thing with lyrics is if your vocabulary reading is limited, your lyrics are kind of gonna be that way. And also recently listening to podcasts, I like listening to people talk.
Okay.
To find out what human, sometimes books, it's just words on a page, but listening to podcasts is a very human thing, to hear how people speak.
Yeah. We worked on a song that I wrote recently, and I had the words, but I was afraid that musically it would go in the same places that I always go, or in the song. Musically, I didn't want to do too much, so I asked Christie to, come up with. She actually helped me with the harmony and the melody.
Oh, yeah.
And I think it's good for musicians to collaborate with other artists, to get a different point of view.
I agree.
Because I wrote the lyrics and, it's like, I don't want to write the melody to this. I want it to come from a different point of view, and it came out beautiful.
Well, thank you. That was a testament to you, I think. I do think working with people, we've built this working relationship where I can bring a tune to you and you'll put your thing on it, or vice versa. So finding your tribe in that sense is really helpful.
Yeah, finding people you can collaborate with. I think that's important.
Yeah.
As an artist, as a musician.
And then I think that there are just things as a vocalist that I do that don't make sense instrumentally, and same thing things as instrumentalists will write for vocalists that don't necessarily make sense. For instance, you're generally going to sing like you speak, rhythmically. So sometimes I notice with instrumentalists when they write, the emphasis on a syllable will be kind of displaced. And so it doesn't make sense lyrically. I'm trying to think of something
I used to write music for my choir, for my group.
Oh, yeah.
And I would have these long, phrases.
Yeah.
Musically it'd be like a run-on sentence. They're like, where do we breathe?
Yeah.
I'm like, I didn't think about that. I'm just thinking about what it sounded like here.
Yeah.
Where do we breathe? I was like, well, y'all figure that out.
It's true. It's and that's happened to me too, especially with ranges of instruments. When you start writing for piano's not as difficult because I feel a lot of vocalists have some piano background.
Oh, you need to talk about that, but go ahead.
But when you're writing for brass, or if you're writing for strings, there are ranges. So I definitely wrote something that was too low for a bass to play or too high for a viola to play, and the instrumentals will have to correct it, or bowings, for string players, you'll write it down, but they're it feels better as an up bow, or horn players, you'll write something maybe, and same thing breathing, the breathing doesn't work. So I think that's why it's great to collaborate with people.
Yeah, I've had that problem as well. I try to write for strings.
Yeah.
I try.
And
it's
amazing.
I'm writing all this stuff and the bowling and it's important to learn the instrument that you're writing for, and so it can translate.
Yeah.
But sometimes it makes, on the other hand, it makes the instrumentalists kind of come up with something different as well.
That's true.
Yeah, it's give and take.
Yeah, that's true.
Well, speaking of your compositional skills, let's I guess do one of your compositions.
Okay.
It's up to you.
Whatever
You want to tell a story about this song?
Okay, this is kind of a funny story. So today is my husband and my 5th wedding anniversary. And, thanks. Thank you. We got married at the courthouse in Rockville. It was really special and sweet, and we were giddy, little, it was really cute. We had a big wedding later on in the year, but we always celebrate our courthouse wedding date. And so I tell my husband everything. He's my best friend. And so one day, as we were preparing my album, we were going through the track listing, and this song, Thinking of You, was on the album. And he said something like, "Wow, babe, that's a really nice song. Thank you for writing that one for me." And because he's my best friend and I don't lie to him, I had to tell him it's not about him. And it's funny because it's very much a love song. And the song is about loving somebody and losing them, but keeping them close to you and always kind of just thinking of them and being content at the thought of whomever the person is. And I definitely like wrote it for someone I dated before him. And you know, it kind of got me in a little bit of trouble. But today, since it's our anniversary, I'm gonna play it and sing it thinking of him and not that other person. He has like a suite of songs that I've written for him, so I'm off the hook now. Like I've written so much for him. Yes. Yeah, I hope you all can relate. This is about, you know, just a person that you've loved and you know, the thought of them is kind of, you know, makes you happy. They're always with you. Although yesterday has come and gone, you're still the one. And your love, it lingers like the sweetest of songs ever sung or ever heard. Though we've moved on, our love still warm as your smile. Never will I love this way again. Time and time again, I wonder if we'll try once more. But if not, I'll be content with simply thinking of you. of you.
I can see why he wanted that song to be about him. Oh wow! You've been called on by so many great artists to record and travel. We can go down the line, but what advice can you give to other vocalists that want to pursue music as a career?
Yeah. I mean, I think everyone's path is so unique and special to them. I think part of my path was like learning how to like speak the instrumental talk, and thus I think a lot of instrumentalists like that about me and decided to use me as their vocalist. And I think that part of that came from just how I grew up. Like both my brothers are instrumentalists, my dad is, my mom, my sister played piano, so that was just kind of my upbringing. So that has been kind of like learning, traveling with band leaders and kind of been putting me under their wing. And I think also one of the things that a lot of band leaders have liked about working with me is I'm kind of curious. And so I would say for other vocalists that are want to pursue, music as a profession, you want to be a professional, music artist, like stay curious, stay open to feedback, to wisdom, like find a mentor, find somebody that, like Allyn, who you can just call in the middle of the night and ask him about things.
Don't you call me in the middle of the night. You can call.
But
maybe you. Don't do it.
But
I'll be waiting.
But yeah, stay open, and always practice, always be professional. That's been something that helped me a lot, being on time, learning the music.
Say that again.
Being on time. People will really fire you from that. Like if you're late, they may not say it then, but they remember, and then you don't get a call back from them, and you're like, I used to sing in that band.
I used to sing it.
But yeah, being on time, learning the music, because people don't like learning music. I don't know what it is, but you'll send people music and they don't learn it, and respecting yourself and respecting the artist enough to learn their music. And then, recently it's been about personal work for me, like learning how to just be a good person. Traveling on the road, the music is there, the talent is there. You get to a certain level where everybody's talented, everybody is killing, as we said. That's the level I think you and I are at. I feel like everybody we work with is just playing at a really high level, but not everybody has great, just interpersonal skills, that are good people, that if you're going to be on the road for 3 months, you want to be around those people for 3 months. So just being a good person goes a long way, too.
Yeah, I want you hit on something that I want to ask you about, which it's going to probably get a little hairy, but it's okay. It seems that for many years, singers have lost respect from instrumentalists. What are some of the myths or assumptions about singers that you seek to demystify?
For sure. And I think I'll take that even a step further. Being a woman that sings has been a black woman. 2 or 3 layers there. A black woman that sings can be difficult, and I think there's some really negative thoughts that instrumentalists have specifically about singers, women and black women singers. I think the stigma for so long was that, they're not going to come in, they don't know their keys, They don't know when to come in. They don't know how to count the song off. They don't have any kind of, musical skills. And that's when you would hear people refer to, this happens in church a lot too, where they'd be like, all right, musicians, y'all come in here, singers, y'all come in here. And that, kind of would get under my skin because my goal was always to be a musician, to be in the same sentence with instrumentalists. So I make the distinction now that it's an instrumentalist versus a vocalist. So I think it's important for vocalists to really just know their stuff. Like, don't be flim-flamming, like, do the work. Know your skills. Like, instrumentalists, if you walk into a classroom, you'll be like, play Dorian mode. And immediately, they know what that is.
Some of them.
Some of them. You're right. Because they're equally, it's right, because there are instrumentalists that don't know. It's like the same. You have your vocalists that don't know, you have your instrumentalists that don't know. You just have your people that don't know and don't do the work. But, I should be able to walk into a vocal class and say, let's sing Dorian today. Mixolydian, Phrygian. Like, you should know.
Yeah, things that instrumentalists are told that they should learn.
They should learn. And then, you also got to know the language too. Not just the musical language, like, bebop language, okay, whatever. But know, like, if you want to tell the drummer, hey, I want to stick across rim, like, you should be able to, or like, your ride pattern is strange, like, or, tell a bass player, can you walk in 2 instead of 4? Like, you got to know the language too, and that just comes from, yet again, connecting with like-minded people. Because I don't think I would have known it had I not grown up how I did or gotten cool with the instrumentalists. But yeah, just know your stuff and know that you are going to encounter sexism on the bandstand, racism on the bandstand. You're going to encounter it all, but I think if you really just know your stuff, you'll know how to deal with it and to kind of shut it down.
That's great. I just had the pleasure of leaving the country for the first time with Christie. They actually got me to go somewhere.
You're the first band to get him to go overseas.
We went to Helsinki, Finland, and it was a wonderful trip.
Yeah.
I did not want to come back, but I am married, so I have to come back. I did not want to come back. And I want Christie to answer this. What do you think the differences are, how do I want to word this, between the audiences abroad and here, as it pertains to black music, jazz in particular? Do you see any differences?
Absolutely. I've come in the last, probably my first big overseas tour was in 2016. So the last 2 years I've been traveling quite a bit, and the biggest thing that I've noticed is there was just a deeper appreciation for the arts overseas. I think it comes from a couple of different things. Like, I think about America as a nation is pretty young in comparison to all these European countries, Asian countries. Like, it's a lot of culture. African countries, all the countries outside of the U.S., whatever. But I think there's so much culture in these other nations that their arts are kind of such a part of that culture that they really respect the arts and the music and in a different way than we appreciate them here. Like, when you think about the States, art funding is always the first to get cut, and it's sad because the art saved me. Being an artist kept me from doing the stuff that I didn't need to be doing. Aside from them really appreciating the music and wanting to study it, the students overseas really remember that guy we were talking to from Sweden, and we mentioned a Miles Davis recording, and off the bat he spit out. It's the amount of studying that people overseas do in comparison to I think what we do here is
Yeah.
really in. I've met a lot of
Yeah,
Europeans.
it's like, we have specialists that know that stuff, but like the general public,
Exactly.
Yeah.
it's hard to even find somebody that knows that
That
stuff.
knows that.
Which is, not.
And I mean, I think we take it for granted because like a lot of pop culture references that, people overseas know are like our culture. Like, I think, to me, I could be wrong and I may be biased because I am black, but I think Black American culture is kind of the culture that the people overseas see.
Mm-hmm.
And so, like,
MTV,
yeah, they see, like, Greg, my husband is Liberian. He grew up in Liberia during the war. And he said, like, what was pushed all the time was Whitney Houston, Michael Jackson, like all these really iconic Black American pop stars. So I think that there's a genuine interest in learning that style, like really just putting yourself all in, like studying from top to bottom these things that are such a part of us that we take for granted.
Yeah.
And then also, I know I'm getting kind of deep into it. I'm pretty analytical, I think. But I'm a Virgo. Virgos are analytical, I think, by nature. Then also, unfortunately, I have gotten treated better overseas. I know a lot of people have told me they've encountered a lot of racism overseas. I have not.
From that one trip.
Yeah.
That's all it took for me.
I have not personally.
I couldn't believe it.
I mean,
I couldn't believe it.
normally when I travel overseas, I wear my hair in like braids or twists just because it's easier. So, TSA here always pats my hair down. Always. TSA over there, they say, wow, your hair is beautiful, and then boom. Or, I got stopped in customs coming home here at Dulles, like recently, the customs officer stopped me for whatever reason. Overseas, I've never encountered that. Granted, I'm speaking from my experience because I've heard a lot of people say they have encountered that. So I don't know. I could be wrong.
Okay. I have one more question. We'll sing. We'll sing. I'm not singing a thing.
Sing, Allyn.
We'll perform another composition, and then we'll take questions from the audience. As a singer, what do you like? What do you look for in an accompanist?
You. No, really. I mean, really. If it's not you, I look for an awareness of like church, jazz, soul. I kind of look for that sensibility, I think, because that's kind of where I'm coming from. Also, I think look for someone that is like really harmonically open and explorative, because I am. Like, you never let me. A lot of times I sing stuff that does not work, but because you're such a great accompanist, you always make sure that what you play makes what I work. Makes what I sing work. So it's hard when it's not you, because I think I am looking for that, like, just.
Well, it's good working with you because you test my ear, which is, I'm always trying to, I'm walking down the street testing my ears, but, anytime I'm, working with Christie, you can't be on autopilot. You just, I'm just going to play the song. So none of that.
You're a great accompanist, I think part of the reason you are, like, it really works is because we're friends too, and so I look for that in a band, that there's like, even if we don't really know each other, that there's kind of like a kindred kind of energy between
I think that's
whoever's playing with me.
Okay, let's end on something. You want to do? We have East of the Sun here and Dynasty. East of the Sun. East of the Sun.
We can do that too. I mean,
Which way is it?
would y'all prefer? Okay.
I thought so.
Oh man, I need to take that. So for my vocalist here,
I'm not gonna be looking at it anyway.
yeah, you know this. I think it's really great and it, like jazz vocalists specifically, to have like really kind of simple jazz arrangements of standards. And so I think this is not really an arrangement. It is and it isn't, but it has an intro and an ending. And yeah, you basically. So when you're preparing a show or trying to get your book together, make sure you have a couple of standards in there that have just like a quick arrangement. It doesn't have to be like a reharm. It doesn't have to be anything really advanced. Just something that the audience can kind of hold on to and like that takes them to like a place where maybe they remember the first time they heard East of the Sun or There Will Never Be Another You. And something recognizable, because a lot of my arrangements are also like kind of not recognizable. So in my experience, I'm sorry I'm getting long-winded, it has been helpful to have some standards in my book that are just like straight up intro, ending, maybe interlude. So yeah, it's my 2 cents. This is East of the Sun. East of the sun and west of the moon, we'll build a dream house of love, dear. Near to the sun in the day, we're near to the moon at night, living in a lovely way, dear. Living a loving pale moonlight, just you and I. Forever and a day. I forgot there's one here. Love will not die. We'll keep it that way. Up among the stars, we'll find the harmony of life to a lovely tune. East of the sun and west of the moon, yeah. East of the sun and west of the moon. A show down, 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 down. Oh, baby, what do
Okay, I think we have time for, let's say, a few minutes. Okay, how about 3 questions? Yes. Oh, yes, I'm sorry, yes.
So I released an album a couple years ago, Time All Mine. If you like what you heard, it's available on all digital streaming outlets and all that stuff.
Wherever fine music is.
Yes, yes, thank you, Mr. Porter.
Yes, sir.
What academic programs
I don't have any.
participated in? What programs did you participate in when you were young, and how were they helpful to you?
Absolutely. So the question is, what programs did I participate in when I was younger, and how have they helped? I did, now defunct IAJE is what is it called now? Gin.
Jazz education.
Yes, Gin. But in 2008, I did their Sisters in Jazz Collegiate All-Stars group. It was a really great program because the focus was on women in jazz and women that composed. So I did that my sophomore year at Howard. We did the last conference in Toronto. And I was really young at the time. I think I was 19, and I think all the other players were grad students, so they were in their 20s. So it really pushed me to kind of like get into the music, sit down at the piano, get inside the changes. And it pushed me to like just learn how to work with like new groups of people. They threw me in with people that I didn't know, and we had to work. I also did in 2010, the year I graduated from Howard, I did Betty Carter's Jazz Ahead program, which is another residency that kind of focused on composition. So the Kennedy Center, so you get to work. I worked with Dr. Taylor. It was one of his last years that he did it. So I'm very grateful. Dr. Taylor, Bernard Harper, Chip Jackson. The vocalist on staff was Carmen Lundy. And Curtis Fuller. I think that was everybody. So, you know, working with like, wow, like the legends of the music kind of was pretty eye-opening. They just gave me a lot of great things, like So at the time, I was just about to graduate from Howard, and I was kind of like feeling myself, I think. Like I was one of the top students at Howard, so I was just like, oh, I'm good. I gotta put that college just ahead, yes. But they humbled me quickly, and I think that was one of the purposes of the program, because in these programs you're dealing with kind of the best of the best, like the best of the school normally, and so they had to kind of bring some of that energy down and let us know we had a long way to go. So that was helpful. And then what else did I do? I did the monk competition. I did that a couple years ago. I think that was helpful in just getting my audition materials together. I think that's always really good. And also learning that competitions are not necessarily about who's the best. It's just about what they need at the time.
And how about the program at Howard itself?
Oh, yes, sorry. Yeah, and I studied at Howard University. I graduated from Howard University, and I studied jazz voice there, working with Kenedra Miller. She's one of the best educators I've ever come into contact with. So the focus was on the tradition of jazz, but also like arranging, and I would say it was a traditional approach. Like we studied Kind of Blue, we studied all the like really iconic recordings, and just like dug into the music. So singing in Afro Blue was great for my ear too. Yeah.
This is just a quick comment. Well, thank you all, first of all. It's wonderful.
My pleasure.
I was thinking about what you said concerning travel overseas, and this was some years ago, also in Helsinki. I went to the jazz festival, and I was there to chase after a donor. I was a museum curator in a past life. And so I get there, my mom's still alive, I'm the baby of the family, and nobody in my family had ever been to that part of the world. So it's like, so I call, and my mom said, well, baby, what's it like, you know? I said, Mom, I raised my hand and the taxi stopped.
Oh.
And she said, and she's like, that's all you gotta say? Your job sent you to Finland, but I mean, it's funny, but just thinking about, you as artists, myself as, what kind of baggage do we carry, no pun intended, and when something even comparatively innocuous as a cab stopping is a big deal. Now, of course, I remember much more about it, and I'm not, no place is Oz, but it always pops out, so yeah, the cab stopped. And, I would do it almost as a joke, like I said, okay, let me smile here, damn, they stopped. It wasn't like MTV Punk'd or something. So anyway, I just wanted to say that, but first of all, but really, thank you all. This is incredible.
One more question. Yes.
Okay. What's some of the hardest obstacles of being an up-and-coming musician, and what advice would you give to others?
Wow, that's a really great question. What's one of the hardest obstacles of being an up-and-coming musician, and what advice would I give to others? So I'm just going to keep it real. I'm not going to sugarcoat. One of the hardest things that I have struggled with, not as much recently as maybe around the time I did the monk competition, was constantly comparing myself to other musicians and vocalists, specifically vocalists. And so in that regard, my advice would be to just know your journey is uniquely yours, and to try your best. It's really difficult, but do your best not to fall into that comparison trap. Like, just know you are you for a reason. Like, there's no other you on this planet, and to just walk in that assurance that you have something special. I think as artists, up-and-coming artists, we normally pit against each other. Like, not in a malicious way. Sometimes yes, sometimes no. You're comparing, we compare Sarah to Ella a lot, or we compare maybe, I don't know, Herbie to Chick, or I don't know, but that really has no significance, I think, when you're trying to build something. So yes, that's my advice.
Again, let's give a hand. thank you all, and this will end this installment of the Allyn Johnson Show. Thank you so much for coming. God bless you, and see you next time. Are there any church announcements?
October's almost over, right?
Yeah, October is gone. That's another song. October. I feel it. Yeah. So,
Pick up calendars as you go out so you can keep up with what's happening.
yes. Thank you. God bless you.
The title coming up right here.
Oh, Teresa, yeah.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
I'll be there.
We in there.
Should be front row center.
I'll be right there. Like, you better send that transcription right.
When is your recital?
Hi everybody, my recital is November 14th at 7 p.m. in this room.
I didn't say he can shave two different things. I didn't say it was no shave.
All right. Thank you for asking those good questions. Oh yeah, he's a, he knows how to do it. He's been doing it for a long time. He knows the right questions to ask.